The signal was old, very old. Captain stood at the center of the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the flickering display. The distress call repeated every 30 seconds, a simple pattern of clicks and tones that nobody in the Galactic Council had used for over 300 years. "Are we sure this is real?" she asked. Lieutenant ran his fingers across his console. He was tall and broad, built like a man who had spent years in combat. His face showed nothing but calm focus. "Signal is authentic, Captain. Origin point is Sector 742, the dead zone." Felt a chill run down her spine. The dead zone was a region of space that most species avoided. Ships went in. Ships did not come out. The Galactic Council had marked it as forbidden territory long ago. "Someone is out there," said quietly. "Someone needs help." Doctor looked up from her station. She was the ship's, a small woman with gentle features and quick hands. "Captain, we have no data on what species might be sending this signal. It could be a trap." "It could be," agreed. "But it could also be someone dying alone in the dark, hoping that anyone will answer." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what that meant. Humans had a rule, an unwritten law that ran deeper than any regulation. You answer the call, always. Chief emerged from the engine room, wiping grease from his massive hands. He was the largest man on the ship, with arms like tree trunks and a voice like distant thunder, but his eyes were kind. "Engines are ready, Captain, whatever you decide." Nodded slowly. "Set course for Sector 742, full speed." The patrol frigate Steel Horizon turned toward the darkness and began to move. Far across the void, the science vessel Quiet Dream was dying. Elder Prism pressed his thin body against the wall as the ship shook again. His bioluminescent skin flickered with fear, casting pale blue light across the damaged corridor. They were not built for violence. They were scientists, dreamers, seekers of knowledge. Their bodies were fragile, their bones like hollow glass. "Elder, they are coming again," said Glow, a young researcher who huddled beside him. Her light pulsed in rapid, terrified patterns. Blood seeped from a wound on her arm. "The raiders, they will not stop." Prism knew she was right. They had found them 3 days ago. The brutal slavers had disabled their engines with the first attack, killed half the crew with the second. Now they circled like predators, waiting for them to grow weak enough to capture. They did not want them dead. They wanted them alive. Slaves sold for better prices when they could still work. "I sent the signal," Prism whispered. "The old signal, the one from before the council. Perhaps someone will hear." Glow's light dimmed. "No one comes to the dead zone, Elder, no one." A new voice crackled through the ship's damaged speakers. It was deep and harsh, filled with cruel amusement. Warlord Skarn of the fleet had opened a channel. "Little lights," Skarn said, "your time is ending. Surrender now and I will let you keep your limbs. Resist and I will remove them slowly. The choice is yours." Prism closed his eyes. There was no choice. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight. They had only hope, and hope was fading fast. Then the sensors screamed. A new ship had entered the sector. It was small compared to the warships, but it moved with purpose and speed. Its hull was gray and angular, covered in weapons that Prism did not recognize. "What is that?" Glow asked, her light flickering with confusion. Prism studied the readings. The ship's origin was listed in the database, but the entry was strange. A single word sat beside a long list of warnings: human. He felt his blood run cold. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories about humans. They came from a world called Earth, a place of nightmares. The gravity was crushing. The air was poison. The surface was covered in predators, diseases, and natural disasters that killed millions. No sane species could survive there. But humans had survived, more than survived. They had thrived, and then they had left their death world and entered the stars. The stories said humans could run for hours without stopping. They could heal from wounds that would kill any other species. They ate the flesh of dead animals. They drank fermented poison for pleasure. They exposed their skin to their sun's radiation and called it relaxation. Prism had always believed these were exaggerations, myths meant to frighten children. Now, watching the human ship cut through space toward them, he was not so sure. The communication channel crackled again, but this time it was not Skarn's voice. It was something new. A female voice, calm and clear, speaking in perfect galactic common. "Vessel, this is Captain of the human patrol frigate Steel Horizon. We received your distress signal. We are here to help." Glow gasped. They came, someone actually came. On the flagship, Warlord Skarn leaned forward in his command chair. His scaled face twisted into a smile. He had heard of humans, of course. Everyone had heard the legends. But Skarn had conquered 100 worlds and crushed 1,000 enemies. He did not believe in legends. "Human vessel," he broadcast, "you have entered hunting grounds. Leave now, or you will become prey alongside these pathetic lights." The human captain's response was instant. "This is your one warning, Warlord. Release the vessel and withdraw your fleet. If you refuse, we will remove you by force." Skarn laughed. The sound echoed across every ship in his fleet. "One small vessel threatens the armada. You are either brave or stupid human." "We are human," Captain replied. "We are both." The channel went silent. On the Steel Horizon turned to her crew. Every face was hard with determination. His hand rested on the weapon's console, cracked his knuckles, loaded medical supplies into her kit. "They have 12 ships," reported. "We have one." Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "Then it is almost a fair fight. Battle stations." The lights on the bridge shifted to red. In the damaged corridors of the Quiet Dream, Elder Prism watched the human ship accelerate toward the fleet. 1 ship against 12. It was suicide. It was madness. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. The first missiles launched, and the darkness of space lit up with fire. The Steel Horizon danced through the formation like a blade through water. Captain gripped her command chair as the ship rolled hard to starboard. 2 missiles screamed past the viewport, so close she could see the red glow of their engines. Lieutenant fired back without hesitation. His shots were precise, each one finding its target. The first raider exploded in a ball of orange flame. 11 left, said calmly. Allowed herself a small smile. They were used to fighting weak prey. They surrounded their victims, overwhelmed them with numbers, and picked them apart piece by piece. They did not know how to fight something that fought back. "Bring us around," she ordered. "Target their weapon systems. I want those boarding pods disabled." Chief's voice crackled through the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, they are launching pods at the ship. 6 of them." Smile vanished. They were not trying to destroy the Quiet Dream. They were trying to board it. They wanted the alive. "Can you stop those pods?" "Negative, too many too fast. We need boots on that ship." "Hit the ship-wide channel. Sergeant, take your squad to the vessel. Protect those people at all costs." In the lower deck, Sergeant was already moving. He was a compact man with sharp features and cold eyes. Combat was his language, and he spoke it fluently. Behind him, Corporal checked her medical kit one final time. She was young but steady, trained to heal in the middle of hell. "You heard the captain," said to his squad. "We move fast, we hit hard, and we keep those civilians alive. Questions?" There were none. The Steel Horizon pulled alongside the crippled ship just long enough for the Marines to cross. They used magnetic grapples, launching themselves through the void in their combat suits. The vacuum of space was silent around them, but could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. They hit the hull and cut through an airlock in seconds. Inside, the ship was chaos. The corridors were dark, lit only by the flickering glow of dying systems and the bioluminescent skin of terrified. Counted at least 20 civilians, huddled together in the main corridor. Their lights pulsed in patterns of pure fear. An elderly stepped forward. His glow was dim, his body trembling, but his voice was steady. "I am Elder Prism. You are the humans." "Sergeant Terran Marines, where are the raiders?" Before Prism could answer, the ship shook. A section of wall exploded inward, and the first warriors poured through. They were massive. Each stood over 2 meters tall, covered in dark scales and natural armor. Their eyes glowed red in the emergency lighting. They carried curved blades and plasma rifles, and they moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. The lead pointed his blade at the cowering. "Take them all. Kill anything that resists." "Step between thee and the civilians." His rifle was already raised. "Bad idea." The laughed. "One small human, you cannot stop us." Fired. The shot took the leader in the chest. The warrior staggered but did not fall. His armor had absorbed most of the impact. He looked down at the scorch mark on his scales, then back at with murder in his eyes. "Is that all you have?" Smiled no. He charged. The watched in stunned silence as the human marine crashed into the formation. Was smaller than every enemy he faced, lighter than their armor, weaker than their muscles. It should have been a slaughter. It was not. Moved faster than the could track. He ducked under a blade swing that would have cut him in half. He fired point-blank into a warrior's throat. He grabbed another's arm and twisted until the joint broke with a wet snap. Corporal and the other Marines joined the fight. They worked as a unit, covering each other, advancing through the enemy line with brutal efficiency. A blade caught one Marine across the shoulder, cutting through his armor and into flesh. The Marine grunted, grabbed the blade with his bare hand, and pulled the forward onto his combat knife. Then he kept fighting. Elder Prism could not believe what he was seeing. The human was bleeding. Blood poured from his wound, bright red in the dim light. By every law of biology, he should have been dead or dying. Instead, he was still killing. "They do not stop," Prism whispered. "Why do they not stop?" Young Glow pressed close to him, her light flickering with something new, not fear. "Awe, Elder, look at them. Look at what they are doing for us." Prism looked. He saw Sergeant take a plasma bolt to his side. The shot burned through his armor and scorched his flesh. The smell of cooked meat filled the corridor. Stumbled, caught himself on the wall, and raised his rifle again. "You missed," he said to the who had shot him. Then he fired, and the head exploded. The remaining raiders broke. They turned and ran, scrambling back toward their boarding pods, desperate to escape the monsters they had tried to capture. Let them go. He was too tired to chase, and they were safe. That was all that mattered. Was already working on the wounded. She moved from Marine to Marine, sealing wounds, injecting medicine, keeping her people alive through sheer force of will. When she reached, she shook her head. "You should be unconscious," she said. Later replied, "Civilians first." She stared at him for a moment, then turned to help the injured. Several of them had been hurt in the fighting, caught by stray shots or falling debris. Treated them with the same care she gave her fellow humans. To her, pain was pain. It did not matter what species was feeling it. On the bridge of the Steel Horizon watched the fleet regroup. They had lost 3 ships, but they still had 9, and now they were angry. Captain said, "Warlord Skarn is hailing us." "Put him through." Skarn's face appeared on the screen. His scales were flushed dark with rage. "You have made a terrible mistake, human. I will skin you alive for this." Leaned forward. "Your warriors ran from my Marines. Your ships are burning, and you still think you can win." "I have 9 ships, you have 1. "I have something better," said. "I have humans." She cut the channel. Looked at her with something like concern. "Captain, he is going to hit us with everything he has." "I know. We cannot win a straight fight against 9 ships." "I know that too." Stood and walked to the viewport. The fleet was forming up, preparing for a coordinated assault. It would be overwhelming. It would be devastating. It would be exactly what she wanted. Contact the ship. Tell Sergeant to get those civilians to the safest part of the vessel. She paused. And tell him to rest while he can. The real fight is just beginning. In the distance, the fleet began to move. The darkness of space was about to get much brighter. The fleet held its position. For 3 hours, the raiders waited at the edge of weapons range. They were regrouping, repairing, preparing for the final assault. Captain used every minute of that time. On the quiet Dream, Doctor worked alongside Corporal to treat the wounded. The medical bay was small and poorly equipped, designed for a species that rarely needed serious treatment, but made it work. She always did. Elder Prism watched her from the doorway. His bioluminescent skin glowed soft blue with confusion and wonder. This small human female moved with confidence through his ship, helping his people as if they were her own. It made no sense to him. "May I ask you something?" Prism said. Did not stop working. Her hands were busy wrapping a bandage around a young's injured arm. "Of course." "Why did you come?" The question had been burning in Prism's mind since the humans arrived. They were strangers. They had no alliance with Earth, no trade agreements, no political connections. There was no reason for humans to risk their lives for them. Finished the bandage and finally looked up. Her eyes were warm but tired. "Because you asked for help." That is not an answer. Many species ask for help. Most are ignored. Was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down on a medical crate facing the elderly alien. "Do you know what Earth is like?" Prism nodded slowly. "I have heard the stories. A death world, extreme gravity, hostile climate, countless predators. I thought they were exaggerations." "They are not," smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Earth tried to kill us every single day. Diseases that rotted our bodies. Animals that hunted us in the dark. Whether that froze us, burned us, drowned us. We survived because we learned to work together. Alone, we were weak. Together, we were strong." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Millions of years ago, our ancestors lived in small tribes. When danger came, the tribe protected its members. The strong defended the weak. The healthy cared for the sick. It was the only way to survive. Prism listened carefully. His light pulsed with interest. "That instinct never left us," continued. "Even now, even after we reach the stars, we cannot ignore a cry for help. When someone is in danger, something deep inside us says, protect them, fight for them, die for them if we must." "Even for strangers?" Prism asked. "Even for species you have never met?" "Especially for them." Stood and placed a gentle hand on his thin shoulder. "We remember what it was like to be small and afraid. We remember the darkness, and we swore long ago that we would be the light for others." Prism's glow brightened. For the first time since the attack, he felt something other than fear. He felt hope. In another section of the ship, Chief crawled through a maintenance tunnel, his massive body barely fitting in the narrow space. The engineers watched him with amazement. How could something so large be so gentle? Reached a damaged power coupling and began to work. His hands, which could crush metal, moved with delicate precision. Within minutes, lights flickered back on in a section of the ship that had been dark for days. A young engineer named Spark floated beside him. "You repair things," Spark said, "but you are a warrior species." Laughed. It was a deep, warm sound that echoed through the tunnel. "I am an engineer. I build things, I fix things. Fighting is something we do when we must, not something we want." "But your strength, your endurance, these are weapons." "They are tools," corrected. "A hammer can build a house or break a skull. The hammer does not choose, the person holding it does." He finished his work and turned to face the small alien. "We choose to build. We choose to protect. That is what makes us human." Spark's light flickered with understanding. "You are not monsters." "No," smiled. We are just people who come from a very difficult home." On the steel horizon, Captain stood alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched out before her, cold and eternal. Somewhere in that darkness, 9 warships were preparing to destroy her and everyone she had sworn to protect. Lieutenant found her there. He stood beside her in silence for a long moment before speaking. "The crew is ready," he said. "Whatever you need." "I know." Did not look away from the stars. "Do you ever wonder if we are doing the right thing?" "Never." His answer was instant. "We save lives, we fight bullies, we answer distress calls. What could be more right than that?" Finally turned to face him. "We are going to lose people today, good people, friends." "Yes." His expression did not change. "And those friends would say the same thing I am about to say. They are worth it. Every innocent life is worth it. That is why we joined. That is why we fight." Nodded slowly. She had needed to hear those words, needed to be reminded why they were here. The weight of command was heavy, but she was not alone. "They are using standard formation tactics," she said, shifting back to business. "They expect us to run or surrender. They do not understand that we will do neither." "What is the plan?" "We cannot win with firepower, so we will win with terror." Pulled up a display showing the fleet formation. "The rule through fear. They have never faced something that frightened them. We are going to change that." Studied the display. A slow smile spread across his face. "You want to break their minds before we break their ships." "Exactly. Prepare the psychological warfare package. I want every horror story about humans broadcast on their frequencies. Every legend, every myth, every nightmare they have ever heard. Let them know exactly what is coming for them. And if they do not break." His eyes went cold. "Then Sergeant will board their flagship, and they will learn that the nightmares were understatements." Nodded and left to prepare. Alone again, looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there they were waiting, hopping, trusting that the strange would save them. She would not let them down. The ship's communication system crackled. It was Elder Prism, his voice filled with emotion. "Captain, I do not know if you can hear me, but I wanted to say something. My people have studied the stars for thousands of years. We have met hundreds of species, but we have never met anyone like you." Listened in silence. "You came for strangers. You bleed for strangers. You may die for strangers. I do not understand it, but I am grateful for it. Whatever happens today, please know that the people will never forget what you have done. You have given us something we lost long ago, hope." The message ended. Closed her eyes for just a moment. Then she straightened her uniform, lifted her chin, and walked back to the bridge. The fleet was starting to move. It was time to show them what humanity was made of. The fleet advanced in perfect formation. 9 warships moved through the darkness, their weapons charged and ready. Warlord Skarn sat in his command chair, watching the tiny human vessel with hungry eyes. This would be the end. They would burn and their legend would die with them. Then the broadcasts began. Every speaker on every ship suddenly filled with sound. It was not music. It was not language. It was noise, raw and primal and terrifying. Screaming voices, thundering drums, the crash of metal against metal, the roar of something ancient and angry rising from the depths of a nightmare world. Skarn's crew froze at their stations. Their scales rippled with instinctive fear. These were sounds their species had never heard, sounds that reached deep into their brains and triggered responses they could not control. "What is this?" Skarn demanded. "Shut it off." His communications officer scrambled to obey, but the broadcast could not be stopped. It poured through every frequency, overwhelming their systems. And underneath the noise, a voice spoke. It was Lieutenant, and his words were chosen carefully. "Warriors, you know the stories about humans. You have heard what we are. Let me tell you what those stories left out." The noise softened, replaced by something worse. Descriptions, facts, the truth about Earth. Our world has a surface gravity 40% higher than galactic standard. We evolved to carry that weight every moment of our lives. Our muscles are dense. Our bones are reinforced. We can run for hours, fight for days, survive wounds that would kill you in seconds. Images appeared on screens transmitted by the human ship. Pictures of Earth's predators, the massive jaws of sharks, the crushing coils of snakes, the pack tactics of wolves, and everywhere the humans hunting them all. We are the apex predators of a death world, continued. Everything on our planet tried to kill us. We killed it back. We ate it. We wore its skin. We built our civilization on the bones of monsters. Skarn gripped his chair. His claws dug into the metal. This was psychological warfare, he told himself, tricks and lies, but his crew did not look convinced. Their fear was growing. You trade in slaves, said. You prey on the weak. You have never faced a species that fights back. Today that changes. Today you face humanity. The broadcast ended. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Captain's voice cut through the quiet. All hands battle stations. Launch all weapons. The Steel Horizon opened fire. It was not a careful attack. It was overwhelming violence, concentrated on the lead ship. Missiles and plasma bolts and kinetic rounds slammed into the warship's shields. The shields held for 3 seconds before collapsing. The hull lasted 2 more before splitting open. 1 ship down, 8 to go. The fleet broke formation, scattering in panic. They had expected an easy kill. They had not expected to be prey. Target the next ship, ordered. Chief, I need more power to weapons. His voice came from engineering. You have got everything I can give, Captain. Just make it count. The Steel Horizon danced through the formation, striking and retreating, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. Another ship took a critical hit to its engines and began to drift. A third lost its weapon systems and fled. But they were recovering. They were warriors, cruel and brutal but not cowards. Skarn screamed orders at his remaining ships, forcing them back into formation. They focused their fire on the human vessel. The Steel Horizon shuddered under the assault. Warning lights flashed across every console. Shields at 30%, reported. We cannot take much more. Made her decision instantly. Prepare the boarding team. We are going for the flagship. Sergeant was already in the launch bay when the order came. His wounds from the earlier fight had been treated but not fully healed. It did not matter. Pain was just information. He could ignore it. His squad assembled around him. Corporal carried a medical kit in one hand and a rifle in the other. The other Marines were battered but ready. They knew what was coming. We board the flagship, said. We find Warlord Skarn, we end this. The boarding pod launched, crossing the gap between ships in seconds. It punched through the flagship's hull and buried itself in the metal. The Marines poured out, weapons firing. They were waiting for them. Dozens of warriors filled the corridors, armed and armored and desperate to prove they were not afraid. The Marines proved them wrong. Moved like a storm, he broke through the first line of defenders before they could react. His rifle spoke in short, deadly bursts. When it ran empty, he used his knife. When his knife was knocked away, he used his fists. He did not stop. He could not stop. Stayed close behind him, keeping the squad alive through pure determination. A Marine went down with a chest wound. She was there in seconds, sealing the injury and injecting stimulants. The Marine stood back up and kept fighting. The medics watched in horror. They had never seen anything like this. Creatures that refused to die. Creatures that fought through pain and blood and exhaustion as if death itself was afraid to touch them. Reached the bridge first. Warlord Skarn was there, surrounded by his personal guards. He was massive, the largest had ever seen. His scales were black as midnight, his eyes burning with rage and something else. Fear. One human, Skarn growled. You think one human can defeat me? Did not answer, he attacked. The fight was brutal. Skarn was strong, stronger than any enemy had faced. His claws tore through armor, leaving deep gashes across his chest and arms. Blood poured from a dozen wounds, but did not fall. He kept coming. Every time Skarn knocked him down, he stood back up. Every time the warlord thought he had won, the human hit him again. Harder, faster, more desperate. Skarn landed a crushing blow to his ribs. The Marine felt something break inside him. He gasped, stumbled, and caught himself on a console. His vision blurred. His legs wanted to collapse. He thought of the small, fragile, terrified, counting on him, trusting him. Straightened, he raised his fists. "Is that all you have?" he asked. Skarn roared and charged. Dodged at the last second, grabbed the warlord's arm and used his momentum against him. Skarn crashed into his own command console. Before he could recover, was on him. Punch after punch, each one harder than the last until Skarn stopped moving. The bridge fell silent. The remaining guards stared at the broken form of their warlord, then at the blood-covered human standing over him. Their weapons dropped from nerveless hands. "Your fleet is defeated," said, his voice rough with pain. "Your leader is beaten. Surrender and you live. Fight and you join him." They surrendered. On the steel horizon, watched the ships power down their weapons. One by one, they began to retreat, fleeing into deep space. The battle was over. She let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. "Sergeant," she said into the communicator, "report." There was a long pause, then's voice weak but alive. "Warlord Skarn is neutralized. The flagship is ours, requesting medical evacuation." "On its way," closed her eyes. "Good work, Sergeant." In the darkness of space, the surviving ships scattered. They would carry the story of this day to every corner of the galaxy. They would tell others what they had seen. They were real. And they were just getting started. The silence after battle was always strange. Captain stood on the bridge of the steel horizon, watching repair crews move across the damaged hull. Her ship had taken heavy punishment, but it was still flying. It would take more than raiders to bring down a human vessel. The quiet dream floated nearby, no longer dark and dying. Chief had worked miracles with its systems. Lights glowed from every window. Life support hummed steadily. They would reach their home world safely. A shuttle crossed from the ship to the steel horizon. Elder Prism had requested permission to come aboard, had granted it immediately. She met him in the docking bay, flanked by Doctor and Lieutenant. The old moved slowly, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with soft colors that had learned to recognize as gratitude. Behind him came young Glow, her arms still bandaged but her light bright and steady. "Captain," Prism said, stopping before her, "I do not have words for what you have done. In my language, there is no phrase for this kind of sacrifice." Shook her head. "It was not a sacrifice, it was a duty. To strangers, to a species you had never met. To anyone who needs help," gestured toward the stars visible through the bay's window. "Out there, the galaxy can be very dark and very cold. No one should face that darkness alone." Prism's light flickered with emotion. He reached out one thin hand, palm up, had briefed on gestures. This one meant deep respect, offered only to true friends. Placed her own hand gently on his. The old alien's skin was cool and smooth, fragile as paper, but his grip was steady. "The people will remember this day," Prism said. "We will tell the story to our children, and they will tell it to theirs. 1,000 years from now, they will still speak of the humans who came from the darkness to save us." Young Glow stepped forward. Her voice was soft but eager. "Captain, I have a request. I want to study your people. Not as specimens, but as partners. I want to understand how you became what you are." Doctor smiled. "I think that can be arranged. Cultural exchange is always valuable." "More than valuable," Glow said. "It is necessary. The galaxy needs to know the truth about humanity, not the scary stories, the real truth, that you are protectors, not predators," considered the young researcher. There was fire in her light, determination in her stance. She reminded of herself long ago when she first joined the service. "You are welcome aboard any time," said. "We have much to learn from each other." The farewell was brief but warm. The return to their ship, and within the hour, the quiet Dream powered up its repaired engines and set course for home. Watched it go until it was just a speck of light among the stars. 3 weeks later, Captain stood before the Galactic Council. The great chamber was filled with representatives from 100 different species. They sat in tiered seats that rose toward a domed ceiling painted with maps of the known galaxy. In the center of the chamber faced them alone. She was not afraid. "The Council has reviewed the incident report," said the High Speaker, a tall being with many eyes. "We have questions." "I expected you would. You entered forbidden space without authorization. You engaged a fleet without Council approval. You took prisoners from a sovereign species." "I answered a distress call," replied calmly. "I saved innocent lives. I stopped slavers. Would the Council prefer I had done nothing?" Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Council was not used to being questioned. Then Elder Prism stood. He had been invited as a witness, and his testimony had been scheduled for later. But the old did not wait. He walked to the center of the chamber, his light glowing bright enough to cast shadows. "If I may speak." The High Speaker hesitated, then nodded. "The Council recognizes Elder Prism of the collective." Prism turned to face the assembled species. His voice was soft but carried through the chamber. "I have lived for many years. I have studied the stars, mapped distant worlds, and cataloged countless species. But I had never truly understood something until 3 weeks ago." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We call humans, we tell scary stories about their planet, their strength, their endurance. We speak of them as monsters, as something to be feared." He shook his head. "We were wrong." The chamber fell completely silent. "When my ship was dying and my people were being hunted, no one answered our call. No one except the humans. They came from across the void, knowing they were outnumbered, knowing they might die. They came anyway." Prism's light pulsed with emotion. "They are not monsters. They are protectors. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day, and instead of becoming cruel, they became kind. They could use their strength to conquer, but they use it to defend. They could take from the weak, but they give instead." He turned to look directly at Captain and her crew. Risked everything for strangers. They bled for us. Some of them nearly died for us. And when it was over, they asked for nothing in return. Nothing except the chance to do it again for someone else. Prism faced the Council once more. "The galaxy is full of predators. Slavers, conquerors, tyrants who prey on the helpless. For too long, we have had no one to stand against them. Now we do." He pointed at, "This is what humanity offers. Not fear, not conquest, protection, partnership, hope." The chamber erupted in noise. Dozens of species talked at once, arguing, questioning, debating. But beneath the chaos saw something she had not expected. Representatives were nodding. Some were looking at her with new eyes, not fear, not suspicion. "Respect." The High Speaker raised a limb for silence. It took several minutes for order to return. "The Council will take Elder Prism's testimony under advisement. For now, we have no further questions for Captain." The paused, then added something unexpected. "We thank her for her service." Outside the Council chamber, found Elder Prism waiting for her. Beside him stood Glow, who had apparently made the journey as well. "You did not have to do that," said. "Yes, I did." Prism's light was calm now, peaceful. "The galaxy needed to hear the truth, and the truth is that humanity is exactly what we have been waiting for." A communication device on his belt chirped. She checked the message, then smiled. "It seems word has spread. Terran Command has received 37 formal requests from different species, all asking for human patrol ships in their sectors. Glow brightened. They want protection. They want partners. Looked at the two. This is just the beginning. There is a lot of work to do. Then do it, Prism said. Answer the calls, save the innocents, protect those who cannot protect themselves, be what you were always meant to be. Nodded, she thought of her crew, battered and tired but unbroken. She thought of Sergeant, still recovering from his wounds, already asking when he could return to duty. She thought of the darkness between the stars and all the voices crying out for help. We will. 1 week later, the Steel Horizon received new orders. 50 distress calls had been forwarded to human patrol ships across the galaxy. 50 chances to answer. 50 opportunities to prove what humanity was made of. Captain read the list and turned to her crew. Their faces were hard with determination. Their eyes burned with purpose. Well, she said, looks like we have work to do. The Steel Horizon turned toward the stars and flew into the darkness. Behind them, 100 watching species began to hope. Humanity had arrived.